Hey friends, welcome back. Thank you for joining me again tonight. Before we start, if you like this type of content, liking and subscribing really help keep this going. Also, drop in the comments what other game or series you'd like to listen to in the future. I tend to listen to these myself quite often. Tonight, we open the map of theories and futures. What the ancients likely meant to do with the deepest wells, how the corridors might one day braid into a single living network, which regions sleep under the fog like muscles under skin, and how the work of the Flameborn slowly hands itself to people who will never need a vault to wake them. Begin with the question that keeps scholars at their writing tables after the lamps are trimmed. What was the plan? The whole plan, not the emergency patchwork we've seen. The ancients did not build at random. Even their mistakes had a symmetry. If you lay the world's known wells over the surviving grid of altars, pylons, and vault mouths, patterns appear that aren't visible on foot. You find triplets of wells forming triangles whose centers align with high, clean ground. You find vault clusters sitting at the ends of these triangles as if ready to receive a tune carried by rock. You find corridors that were never roads at all, bands of stone that carry vibration more faithfully than their neighbors, ridgelines carved shallower than terrain alone would cause. From this geometry, a theory emerges that feels less like fantasy and more like a half-remembered instruction. The ancients meant to teach the world to stay in tune without them. Think of it as a series of slow lessons delivered to a planet the way you'd teach a large instrument to hold pitch. Step 1, discover the flame and write it into stone. Step 2, find the elixir seams and learn to move their pressure safely. Step 3, build wells that serve as valves, not straws. Step 4, create a civilization that lives on top of the instrument and plays it with maintenance instead of spectacle. Step 5, retire, leaving behind a tuned environment and a habit. Where did it go wrong? Between steps 3 and 4, when extraction outpaced instruction. Step 5 never arrived. The Flameborn are Step 5's last-minute adjunct teachers, summoned to guide a class that never had time to learn the basics. That's the old plan. What about a new plan? One that accepts what the shroud is, accepts the spiral under the wells, accepts that the fog will always prefer smoothing, and asks what a world looks like when people build for that truth. Survivors have been prototyping answers without calling them that. Corridors already function like training paths for the land itself. They repeat the same tasks at hours that trace wind, sun, and need. Bells ring, hinges speak, kettles simmer, altars answer, ledgers record, caravans vary. Over time, the ground under these corridors begins to act differently than the ground far from them. Doors hang longer before warping. Pylons hold their tone between retunings. Market squares regain echo faster after storms. If stone can remember a song, the corridors are teaching one. The future suggests itself. Weave enough corridors, and the world begins to prefer textured tone in those bands, the way a footpath becomes easy by being walked. Picture this weave not as lines on parchment, but as a living braid. A ridge corridor meets a river corridor at a town built like a clasp. Its market floats in the wet months, stands on legs in the dry, and never presents the same geometry twice in a season. The clasp town keeps 2 ledgers, a daily one like everywhere, and a seasonal one that records when the town changes shape. The seasonal ledger is future-facing memory. It teaches newcomers how to arrive. Downhill, where fog likes to rest, a pine-edge corridor slides along the forest and insists on asymmetry the way a musician insists on swing. The two meet at a cross corridor, whose only job is to carry tone between them with as little loss as possible. That cross corridor may have no town at all, just a chain of way stations designed to hold the right kind of boredom. Water, warmth, a bell rope, a logbook, and mismatched chairs, so nothing sits too straight. What happens when enough of these braids exist that a traveler can move 3 weeks without losing the sound of human rooms? Wind learns, water learns. Fog meets a resistance that isn't a wall and isn't a weapon. It's a texture, too heavy to smooth in one pass. That is the far future some mapmakers sketch in the corners of their charts, not with borders, but with shadings. Here, the world is easy to live in because people live in it right. There, it is harder because people have haven't taught it yet. Now, to the sleeping regions, the places everyone mentions in low voices when the evening runs long. Not every gap on the map is mystery. Some are simply distance and weather, but a few are silence of the wrong kind. Rooms of the world that swallowed noise and did not give it back. Let's walk 3 in imagination, with enough detail that you could plan a first expedition. First is the salt interior, a high basin beyond the dune bands. Old charts mark it with a ring of dry lakes and a symbol that looks like a bowl. Trade paths skirt it because wind there is an accountant that counts sand grains and presents the result as a bill to your lungs. Why go? Because stories tell of a city that sang to its wells rather than pumping them, where streets were tuned by salt pillars and the shroud had to choose between listening and moving. If even half true, there is a craft to learn there that the ridge towns have only guessed at. How to make the ground itself say no in a voice fog can't counterfeit. A corridor could cross the dunes by stopping at night in bowls that hold wind like a promise. Kettles would simmer on sand-heated stones. The bell would be a low-frame drum, struck once on the hour, so the basin learns a human heartbeat again. Second is the northern caldera, a ring of black cliffs around a lake that gasses on cold mornings. This is spiral country from the first step, a place where stone has forgotten what being stone is for. The ancients dug here, and the shroud answered early. You can see that in the shapes. Slopes rounded by an old smoothness, trees bowing in a single direction, the lake surface breathing. Why go? Because some wells aren't supposed to be closed, they're supposed to be converted. The caldera wants a different relationship with tone, one that isn't maintenance alone. Theories suggest that if you detune a ring in specific, alternating ways and walk the ring with a caravan whose cadence matches the lake's slow breath, the caldera can hold itself at a textured low pitch for entire seasons. That would be a school for the hardest kind of work, teaching a place that loves smoothing to love the opposite. Third is the far step, where sky eats most of the map, and the only rooms are tents and the wind's rooms in grass. The shroud has the least purchase there because there are few corners to sit in, but it wins in a different way. By courting loneliness, by offering perfect days without friction until time loses marks. Nomad bands learned a countersong. Their ledgers are oral and precise. Their bells are woven into horsetack. Their hinges are the leather laces on chests. Their clinics are kettles and shade. They do not need pylons to stand forever. They need anchors that move correctly. The future may come from them, not from cities, because they've already solved something the rest of the world is learning: how to be predictable to each other and unpredictable to the fog. Beyond specific regions, there is the idea of deep infrastructure, not technology in the old glowing sense, but stone and timbers set in ways that last as long as good habits. Imagine spineways under the corridors, shallow tunnels that carry tone further than air can, lined with ribs that refuse smooth, even after seasons of neglect. They aren't sewers, they're harm avoidance organs. When a pylon goes too smooth, the spineway hum pushes up from below, like a friend tapping a tabletop to get your attention. When a market falls silent in a heat wave, the spineway shepherds drafts into the square with gentle insistence. Building these is slow, dull, expensive, and therefore perfect for a civilization committed to thickness over speed. Work crews would move a mile a season and leave a mile that needs no applause. Where does the flame-born role go as this thick world grows? Toward disappearance on purpose. In the first years, a flameborn is a walker of first resort, touching stone, correcting tone, teaching rules, closing wells wrongly opened, opening vaults wrongly closed. Later, they become a walker of last resort, called for puzzles that outlast a season, not for every hinge. They mentor keepers, wind readers, thread runners, midwives, market ringers, and archivists, then move on before anyone builds a statue. In the far future, if corridors braid, if schools teach maintenance as culture, if spineways hum, the best outcome is that flameborn wake to a world that doesn't need them. They would walk the ridges like a retired craftsperson, visiting shops one last time, nodding at hinges, tasting bread, smiling at ledgers filled with small sentences, and return below with the satisfaction of work successfully delegated to a civilization. Handing off requires language, not just spoken language, but a grammar for practice. We already have pieces. Ledgers are prose, past tense, factual, useful, bell patterns are poetry, compact, evocative, immediately actionable. Hinges and doors are punctuation, commas to slow, periods to stop, exclamation marks to warn of faulty weight. Kettles are verb tense, nowness maintained, present continuous. Alters are the paragraph breaks where rooms breathe. The weave of these, prose you can read while tired, poetry your hands can perform, punctuation your body can hear, tense you can taste, becomes the civics of Ember Vale. The future's schools will teach reading, counting, maintenance, and argument as one discipline. Debate class at midday will be held by the maintenance table under the bell rope, because a good argument inside working sounds holds a town firmer than any unanimous vote in a silent hall. Theories about the Shroud's origin will not stop. They may not need to. Speculation has a job when it leads to careful action. Some say the Shroud is the planet's immune system, inflamed by extraction. Others say it is the byproduct of elixir pressed beyond ethical limits, an echo that thickened until it decided it wanted to sing lead. Some, more mystical, say it is the shadow of attention itself, that anything focused too cleanly on control will throw a fog. The practical difference between theories is small. All end at the same prescription, live textured, not smooth. But one theory deserves more than a shrug because it carries a promise with it. The Shroud may be educable. Not to be kind, appetite doesn't learn mercy, but to prefer easier meals. A world full of textured corridors and noisy chores is a world where the fog can snack at the edges and leave the middle alone. That sounds like compromise. It's also stability. We don't need a universe without fog. We need a daily life the fog finds expensive to rewrite. Justice and governance in that future will look like carpentry. Seats will be made uncomfortable on purpose, not cruel, just honest. So meetings don't run past usefulness. Councils will break at the hour to pull a rope, to tune a stone, to refill the clinic kettle. Laws will be short and checked against ledgers. Any rule that can't be recorded as an action someone took will be sent back for revision. Titles will become verbs rather than nouns. You don't become a bell ringer forever. You ring the bell this season, then you teach the next. You don't become a flame keeper as an identity. You keep the flame today, and tomorrow you keep bread, hinge, or ledger. Identity in the fog age is dangerous when it stops moving. Better to be a series of verbs tied by memory than a statue that asks to be smoothed by admiration. Religion and story will adapt too. The old gods of abundance and conquest will seem naive where fog teaches scarcity of attention and the power of small acts. New prayers will sound like checklists and lullabies. Bless this hinge, so it speaks. Bless this rope, so it holds. Bless this kettle, so it tells the truth at midnight. Festivals will keep their fireworks, but the most cherished moment will be the quiet chore everybody does together. The sweep of a square that turns sound into a soft sea. There will be pilgrimages, not to thrones, but to hinges that survived centuries, to bells whose ropes taught 5 generations, to ledgers with entries going back without gaps, to a kettle that kept a clinic awake for a month when fog pressed hard. None of this is lesser wonder. It's wonder closer to hand. Education, already turning, will formalize the apprenticeships we've seen. A 12-year-old might spend a season as a wind reader's shadow, then a baker's helper, then a ledger reader for the maintenance table, then a caravan runner's bell carrier. Exams will not be written under silent lamps. They'll be performed between chores. Can you hear a room from the threshold and say what work it needs? Can you open a window without flattening a song? Can you add a note to a ledger with 3 words and no adjectives that still tells the truth? Can you argue for detuning a pylon by a hair so a clinic sleeps right and then convince the neighbors by ringing the bell at the perfect microsecond where their bodies feel your point? That is rhetoric in the age of fog. Timing, tone, and evidence you can touch. Craft will balance machine. There will still be devices, lamps, pumps, mills, but citizens will be trained to ask, does this tool increase participation or replace it? A lamp that brightens automatically when a room empties is suspect. It teaches emptiness. A lamp that brightens when someone pulls a chain teaches ownership. A pump that runs smooth as glass will fail a town. A pump that throbs politely asks someone to walk over and listen daily. The future's technology will be designed with roughness built in, not as defect, but as invitation. Even warfare, when it sadly comes, will be different. Armies that run on loops will fail fast in textured corridors. Sappers who can find a fog's favorite chair and remove it will be more valued than cavalry. Siege engines will be tuned to break rhythm rather than just stones. Defenders will fight by schedule, ring, sweep, argue, simmer, sleep. Attackers will try to force escalation. The side that remains more bored will likely win. Bored in the right way, the way that means procedures held and nobody reached for a grand gesture that gave the fog a clean story to grab. The most dangerous general in the new age will be the one who can make a camp sound like a town, not the one who can drive men like hammers on a drum. Trade will favor honesty of surfaces, merchants will advertise texture, cloth that creaks faintly and softens with wear, pots that ping just once when they cool, wood that refuses mirror polish in favor of grain you can trace with your finger. Fancy will still exist, it will just be fancy with edges. Even coin may change. Tokens that ring properly when dropped on maintenance tables may carry more trust than notes whose ink lies silent. Markets will publish not just prices, but schedules. When the bell rings, when bread cracks, when the clinic simmer resets. A merchant who lies about schedule will be trusted less than one who admits a shortage. The fog exploits lies. Truth is aerodynamic in its face. The deepest spiritual shift may be in how people think about rest. Rest used to be imagined as perfect stillness. In the age of fog, rest becomes rhythmic ease. Breath that you can hear, a hinge that speaks without complaint. Water that trills rather than roars. People will organize futures not around buildings, but around rests. The afternoon rest hour, the weekly day when kettles are kept honest and arguments are short. The seasonal rests where corridors slow caravans on purpose so streets can learn patience again. Productivity will return as a side effect. The fog hates rooms where humans are present as humans. The most efficient defense is a culture where presence is habitual. All of this grows from small demonstrations that already exist. A ridge town that detuned its pylon by a half key and saw sleep improve. A river market that floats and refuses right angles. A school that reads ledgers on Tuesdays and argues on Wednesdays. A caravan that varies without chaos and arrives inside the hour band. When people ask for a manifesto, give them a map of these places and tell them to go listen. A manifesto you can't hear at a hinge is just perfume on paper. We haven't spoken much about joy, and we should, because joy is a tool here. The fog tries to flatten not only sound, but surprise. Joy resists flattening by making the body do new things. There will be dances that lean into drafts, food that cracks at the teeth, jokes that require a door to answer with a creak as the punchline. Weddings will include a test where the couple has to tune a pylon together by hand until the square's echo feels right. Anniversaries will be celebrated by retouching a ledger from the year before with today's hand, proving continuity. Children will giggle as they try to catch the exact instant a kettle lid trills when the flame is lowered. These are not decorations, they are the armor you can carry lightly. As the decades pass, something else will happen quietly. The spiral will feel less alien. That does not mean it will become tame. It means crews will descend and find galleries that used to hum too smooth, now refusing to do so, because texture has been braided into the rock by years of correct practice above. Wells that rebirthed roots weekly will sulk and try monthly, then seasonally. The spiral will remain a place where procedure beats bravado, but the procedure will grow simpler. Where now you need a ledger full of cautions, later you will need an abridged one. That is cultural wealth. Fewer instructions because more behaviors are baked into how we live. There will be failures along the way. A corridor will overtune, becoming smug and brittle. A town will make chores a creed and forget kindness. A council will decide that ledgers are gospel and punish improvisation. When those happen, the fix will look familiar. Detune by a hair. Invite argument, reintroduce a sound, share bread that cracks, read names, and ask if anyone went unheard this week. The cure for overcorrection is the same as the cure for undercare. Participation, gently insisted upon. What about those who still long for the old glowing power, who whisper about restarting the grand machines and burning the fog away like sugar on a custard? There will be experiments. Most will force smoothness and fail in impressive ways. A few will discover something real, a way to give a square a day of deep relief after a flood, a tool for carrying tone across a broken pass. The culture will hold these with open palms. Use sparingly, never alone, and always with a bell in reach. And the last handoff, what becomes of the flame-born themselves when the world has learned to keep itself. Some will sleep again, not out of necessity, but out of tradition. So there is always a reserve of people trained to wake into boredom and treat it as victory. Some will remain awake and become anonymous. Bakers, sweepers, bell ringers with a slightly better ear. Some will walk until their bones say stop, and then teach from a bench in a square where children come to try their first door. The title will shrink and the work will spread. That is a good ending for a role born in crisis. If you're listening with that end-of-shift heaviness in your arms and the comfort of a room you made honest yourself, here is the pocket future worth keeping. We do not reach a single day when the fog is defeated and the horns blow and we retire to never squeaking hinges. We reach endless days where the fog is bored, and we are not. We reach markets that sound like themselves, clinics that hum quietly, corridors that vary on purpose, ledgers that record facts without needing to prove anything, bells that ring because someone's hand chose to pull a rope, and a planet that begins to prefer being textured because the creatures on it do. That is the victory condition, a world that is easier to keep than to lose. So tomorrow, if you want to live in that future, do a simple thing and do it on time. Touch the stone, pull the rope, boil the water, oil the hinge and let it speak a little, read the names, argue kindly with your hands in sight. Walk the route and vary it by a step. Invite wind in. Bake the bread that cracks. Write the ledger line with 3 words and no adjectives. Then teach one person the reason. The reason isn't grand. The reason is that the fog erases by smoothing and we keep by participating. That sentence will build corridors faster than any parade. Next episode, we'll close the arc by gathering the myths people will tell a century from now, how the world remembers this era when the panic has cooled, the folk heroes who adjust maintenance leads with steady hearts, the relics that are simply kettles and ropes, the pilgrim paths that follow hinge songs and market bells, and how to tell those myths honestly so the next tired listener can rest without being fooled into thinking victory is louder than the work that made it. For tonight, set your kettle just shy of boil, open the window a hand's width, and let your hinge